It was supposed to be a simple delivery, a quiet afternoon at a small horse ranch at the edge of a forgotten town. The wind carried the smell of hay and dust, and the only sound was the rhythmic squeak of an old stable door swinging open and shut. But that day, something unexpected arrived. A trailer stopped by the gate, and inside it stood a thin, trembling mare, eyes wide, coat dull, and heart clearly broken. The driver looked confused, checking the paper again. "This is Meadowbrook Ranch, right?" he asked. The ranch owner, Claire, nodded slowly. "Yes. But I didn't order any horse." The man scratched his head. "Well, it says here she's yours now. Rejected from the previous buyer. They didn't want her anymore. Said she's useless." The word useless hit Claire harder than she expected. She'd seen that look before, a creature stripped of purpose, abandoned without warning. "Bring her down," she said quietly. The mare hesitated before stepping off the trailer. Her legs wobbled. Her ribs showed through the thin layer of mud. There was something haunting in her eyes, not fear, but confusion. She didn't understand why she was still being moved from one place to another. As the truck disappeared down the dirt road, silence returned. Claire stood still, watching the mare sniff the ground. She whispered, "You weren't supposed to be here, were you?" The mare looked up, ears twitching, as if she understood. That night, under the dim stable light, Claire brushed her gently. Every touch revealed another scar, some physical, others deeper. She named her Hope. But what Claire didn't know was that Hope's arrival, a simple mistake, a wrong address, was about to change both of their lives in ways no one could have imagined. The following morning, the ranch was wrapped in a thin veil of fog. Claire stepped outside, coffee steaming in her hands, and saw the silhouette of the mare standing motionless near the old oak tree. Hope hadn't moved much during the night. She hadn't eaten, either. Her eyes kept scanning the horizon as if searching for someone who had left her behind. Claire walked slowly toward her, speaking in a calm voice. "Hey, sweetheart, you're safe now." The mare's ears flicked, but she didn't move. Claire reached out, and when her fingers brushed against Hope's neck, the animal flinched violently, almost rearing back. Claire froze. "It's okay. Nobody's going to hurt you here." That reaction told her everything. Whoever had owned this horse before hadn't been kind. She'd seen trauma before, in people, in animals, it was always the same look. Eyes that said, "I don't trust you yet, but I want to." Later that day, Claire checked the paperwork again, hoping to understand how such a mistake could happen. The form listed a different name, a different address, a ranch almost 2 hours away. "So, you really weren't meant to come here," she whispered. But something inside her told her not to call anyone yet. Not to correct the error. Instead, she opened the gate and let Hope explore the field. The mare walked hesitantly at first, her steps uneven, but then, for a brief moment, she started to trot. The movement was clumsy, uncertain, but there was a spark there. Claire smiled through tears. "There you are," she said softly. As days passed, the connection between them grew. Claire discovered that Hope had once been trained as a show horse but had been rejected after an injury to her leg. When the owner realized she would never compete again, they sold her off like a piece of broken equipment. One evening, while brushing Hope's mane, Claire whispered, "I know what that feels like." She looked around her small, half-empty ranch, her late father's dream that she had tried to keep alive. Everyone left when things went wrong. "I guess we're both what they call rejects, huh?" Hope turned her head slightly, pressing her muzzle against Claire's arm. It was the first time she'd ever done that. And in that small gesture, something unspoken passed between them. The beginning of healing, for both horse and human. But destiny wasn't finished yet. The real reason why Hope had been sent to the wrong ranch, and what she would reveal, was still waiting to unfold. A few weeks later, Hope had already transformed the quiet rhythm of the ranch. Her stall no longer felt like a prison, it was now filled with soft whinnies in the morning and gentle nickers when she saw Claire. The woman would often sit on a bale of hay, sipping her coffee while Hope rested her head on her shoulder. There was a strange peace in their silence, the kind of calm that only two broken souls could share. One afternoon, as Claire was cleaning the old storage shed, she found a dusty envelope tucked behind a crate. It had been delivered along with Hope's paperwork, but she had never opened it. Curious, she tore it open and unfolded the papers inside. At first, it looked like a veterinary report. But then, her eyes froze on a line highlighted in red ink: previous owner requests euthanasia due to irreparable injury. Her hands began to shake. The mare had been marked for death. The wrong address wasn't just a mistake, it was a miracle. If the driver had taken the right road that day, Hope wouldn't even be alive. Claire rushed to the stable, her heart pounding. Hope lifted her head as she entered, sensing something in her energy. "You were supposed to die," Claire whispered, tears filling her eyes. "But somehow, you ended up here. With me." Hope took a hesitant step forward, then another, until she was close enough that Claire could feel her breath. The woman placed her hands on the horse's face, pressing her forehead against hers. "You weren't sent to the wrong address, girl. You were sent to the right one." That night, Claire couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about fate. About how one mistake had rewritten the story of a living being. And as she sat by the window, she realized something else: Hope wasn't just healing. She was helping Claire heal too. The ranch had been dying since her father's passing. Bills piled up, fences rotted, and the laughter that once filled the fields had vanished. But Hope's presence changed everything. Neighbors started visiting again, curious about the miracle horse. A local vet offered free treatment when he saw how determined Claire was to help her recover. Then came the most unexpected call. A man from the ranch that was originally meant to receive Hope had finally noticed the error. "We think one of our horses was delivered to you by mistake," he said coldly. Claire froze. Destiny was knocking again, but this time, she would have to decide whether to answer, or to fight for the creature who had already saved her heart. The next morning, the sun rose red, a color Claire had learned to distrust. It painted the sky like a warning. Hope stood in the pasture, calm and unaware, her mane fluttering in the soft wind. But inside the house, Claire's heart was pounding like thunder. The phone call from the night before still echoed in her mind. At exactly 9 o'clock, a dark truck pulled into the driveway. Dust swirled around its tires, and two men stepped out. One in a suit far too clean for ranch work, and the other holding a clipboard. The suited man adjusted his sunglasses and looked at Claire. "Miss Carter? I believe you have something that belongs to us." Claire crossed her arms. "You mean someone," she corrected him sharply. He ignored the tone. "The horse was delivered here by mistake. We're here to take her back." Her pulse quickened. Hope, hearing the unfamiliar voices, lifted her head and whinnied softly, taking a step closer to the fence. Claire moved instinctively, standing between the man and the horse. "You can't just take her. She's not a thing you can collect." The man smirked. "Legally, she's ours." "The papers say," she interrupted, voice trembling but firm. "The papers also say you wanted her euthanized. Don't pretend you care about her now." For a moment, silence fell. Even the wind seemed to stop. The man's expression hardened. "That's none of your concern. We changed our mind. She's worth something now that she's been seen in the news." Claire felt her stomach twist. "The news?" He pulled out his phone, showing her a local article: "Abandoned horse finds new life at Meadowbrook Ranch." The picture showed Claire brushing Hope's mane, both framed by golden light. The story had gone small-town viral. People had come to see the miracle horse that survived by mistake. "They think she's some kind of hero," he said coldly. "We own her. And now she's valuable again." Claire's voice broke. "You can't take her back to that life. She's finally free." The man sighed. "If you don't hand her over, we'll get the sheriff involved." He turned, motioning to his driver. "Hook up the trailer." Panic rose in her chest as she watched them walk toward the pasture. Hope began to pace nervously, sensing the tension. Claire whispered to herself, "Not again. I won't lose her too." In that moment, she made a choice, one that would change everything. Without thinking, she ran toward Hope, unlatched the gate, and shouted, "Go." The mare hesitated for a heartbeat, then bolted. Dust exploded behind her hooves as she galloped across the open field, toward the forest that stretched beyond the hills. The men shouted, but it was too late. Hope disappeared into the trees, the sound of her hooves fading like thunder swallowed by distance. Claire stood there, trembling, tears streaming down her face, half terrified, half free. For the first time in years, she realized she had done something not out of fear, but out of love. The forest swallowed Hope's figure faster than Claire could blink. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. For a few seconds, all she could hear was the echo of hooves, and then, silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The two men cursed and sprinted toward their truck. "We'll find her," one of them shouted. "She can't go far." Claire ran after them, but not to stop them. She needed to know which way Hope had gone. The woods behind Meadowbrook stretched for miles, a labyrinth of oaks and pine needles, with narrow streams and wildflowers scattered like forgotten secrets. If Hope was hurt, she wouldn't survive long alone. But deep inside, Claire believed something else. She believed Hope would find her way back. Somehow. As the sun began to sink, the forest turned gold and then gray. Claire searched until her legs ached and her lungs burned. She called her name again and again, "Hope. Come on, girl. It's me." But nothing answered except the wind. Night fell. The men eventually gave up, promising to return with the sheriff. Claire ignored them. She stayed by the fence, her flashlight trembling in her hand, whispering prayers into the dark. Then, as the moon rose high, she heard it, a faint rustle from beyond the trees. At first, she thought it was her imagination. But then came a soft, familiar sound, a whinny. Weak, but real. "Hope," she whispered. From the shadows emerged the mare, covered in dust, sides heaving, but eyes bright. She had come back. Claire fell to her knees as Hope trotted toward her and pressed her head against her chest. Claire wrapped her arms around her neck and cried into her mane. "You came back. You actually came back." When morning arrived, the story spread faster than wildfire. A neighbor who had seen the whole thing posted a video of Hope's return. The trembling mare walking out of the woods straight into Claire's arms. People from all over began visiting, donating, and sending messages. "This isn't just luck," one local paper wrote. "It's destiny." But with attention came new danger. The men who had tried to reclaim Hope weren't done. A letter arrived 2 days later, sealed and stamped with an attorney's logo. Notice of ownership claim. They wanted Hope, legally this time. Claire read it in silence, hands shaking. They were going to sue her. That night, sitting by Hope's stall, she whispered, "They can take everything I have, but they'll never take you. Not again." Hope nickered softly, brushing her muzzle against Claire's hair as if to promise she understood. And then, in the middle of that fragile quiet, Claire had an idea, one that might change everything. If they wanted a fight, she'd give them one, but not the way they expected. Claire barely slept that night. The letter lay open on the kitchen table, its black ink cutting through her thoughts like a knife. Every line screamed the same message, "You don't deserve her." "We do." But the more she read it, the calmer she became. Fear slowly gave way to clarity. Those men had money, lawyers, and influence, but she had something stronger, the truth and the hearts of thousands of people who had already fallen in love with Hope's story. At dawn, she drove into town. The little coffee shop at the corner was already open, and she knew who she'd find there, her old friend Ethan, the local reporter who'd written the first article about Hope. He looked up as she entered, startled by her expression. "Claire, you okay?" She slid the letter across the table. They're suing me. He scanned the paper, his eyes darkening. Of course they are. They see a miracle, and all they think about is profit. Claire sighed. I can't afford a lawyer. Not even close. Ethan leaned forward. You might not need one. You just need people. Let's tell the full story, everything. What they did, what she went through, what you found in those papers. She hesitated. You think that'll help? He smiled softly. Claire, people fight for what moves them. And hope moves people. By noon, the post went live, she was sent to die. One wrong address saved her life. Within hours, thousands of comments poured in. Messages of support flooded her inbox. Strangers offering money, legal advice, shelter, even volunteers to guard the ranch at night. Meanwhile, Hope stood quietly in her stall, watching Claire with calm, trusting eyes. It was as if she knew what was happening. Claire whispered to her, We started this together, girl. We'll finish it together. 3 days later, the lawyers for the old ranch arrived again, this time not with a truck, but with papers and a sheriff. But something unexpected awaited them at the gate. Dozens of cars lined the dirt road. Neighbors, reporters, animal rescue advocates, even kids holding handmade signs that read, Let Hope Stay Home and Wrong Address, Right Destiny. The sheriff stepped out, clearly uncomfortable. Miss Carter, he said quietly, this is quite a crowd. Claire nodded. We're not hiding anymore. The man in the suit from before looked furious. You think a few people with cameras will change anything? Claire took a deep breath. Not a few. Thousands. She pointed toward the reporters' microphones. The world's watching now. Hope neighed softly from behind her, as if lending her strength. For the first time, the man hesitated. He looked at the cameras, the cheering crowd, the sheriff shifting awkwardly beside him, and he realized that taking the horse by force would destroy their reputation. This isn't over, he muttered, before storming back to his car. As his truck disappeared down the road, the crowd erupted into applause. Claire covered her face, trembling, not from fear this time, but from relief. She turned to Hope, who nudged her gently with her nose. You did it, she whispered through tears. We did it. But even as joy filled the air, Claire knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something far greater, because Hope's story was now bigger than her ranch, bigger than her small town. It had become a symbol of second chances, of fate, of how sometimes the wrong road leads exactly where you belong. Weeks passed, and what had once been a quiet, forgotten ranch had turned into a place of pilgrimage. Cars lined the dirt road every weekend. Families came from hours away just to see the horse that destiny saved. Children brought apples and carrots, photographers snapped pictures, and Hope, once trembling and unwanted, now stood tall and radiant, her coat gleaming in the sunlight like it had absorbed every ounce of love she'd been given. Claire often stood at the fence, watching in disbelief. The same animal who had arrived broken and afraid now walked proudly beside children, letting them pet her muzzle. It felt like witnessing a living miracle. One afternoon, as Claire guided Hope toward the field, she noticed a man standing by the gate. He wasn't from town. His clothes were too formal, his stance too rigid. When he removed his hat, she saw the face, older than she expected, worn but unmistakable. It was him, Hope's original owner. For a moment, everything inside her froze. She remembered his name from the documents, Richard Cole. The man who had signed the euthanasia order. Miss Carter, he said quietly. May I speak with you? Claire hesitated, glancing at Hope. The mare tensed slightly, then relaxed when she felt Claire's hand on her neck. You've already said enough, Claire replied coldly. Your signature almost killed her. He lowered his eyes. I know. That's why I'm here. Claire said nothing. He took a slow breath. I didn't think she'd make it. The vet told me she'd never recover. I couldn't stand seeing her suffer. His voice cracked. But seeing her now, I was wrong. Hope stepped forward cautiously, her ears twitching. There was no fear this time, only quiet recognition. She studied him for a long moment, then brushed her muzzle against his arm. The man's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve that, he whispered. Claire crossed her arms. Maybe not. But she forgives faster than people do. He nodded, struggling for words. I didn't come to take her. I came to apologize, and to thank you. You saved her life. And maybe you saved mine too. For a while, silence filled the field. The sound of leaves rustling in the wind was the only thing between them. Then, Richard reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. I signed over her ownership to you, he said softly. Officially. She's yours now. Claire blinked, speechless. She took the document with trembling hands. You mean it? He nodded. I do. She was never supposed to end up here, but maybe fate knew better than we did. As he walked away, Claire looked down at the paper and then at Hope. The mare nickered gently, pressing her head against her shoulder as if to say, it's finally over. Tears rolled down Claire's cheeks. No, girl, she whispered. It's finally beginning. That night, under a sky full of stars, Claire opened the ranch gates and let Hope run free across the moonlit pasture. Her gallop echoed through the valley, strong, fearless, alive. And as Claire watched her disappear into the silver glow, she finally understood. Sometimes, what looks like the biggest mistake in life is just destiny taking the longer way home. Spring arrived like a quiet promise. The hills around Meadowbrook turned green again, wildflowers covered the pastures, and Hope's mane danced in the morning wind like golden fire. The ranch, once on the edge of closing forever, had become a sanctuary, not just for Hope, but for many others like her. Abandoned, mistreated, forgotten horses now arrived one by one, each carrying their own story of pain, and each finding a second chance in the place that destiny had chosen by mistake. Claire stood by the fence one morning, a warm cup of coffee in her hands, watching as Hope led a small group of new rescues through the field. She smiled softly. You're the leader now, girl, she whispered. You're showing them it's okay to trust again. The media attention had faded, but something deeper had remained. Letters still arrived weekly, from strangers who had read about Hope's story and said it gave them courage to fight for their own lives, their own healing. Some wrote that they had adopted rescue animals in her honor. Others said her story saved them from giving up. One envelope, however, was different. Inside was a single photograph of a young girl standing beside a small brown horse. On the back, it read, "She was thrown away too, until we read about Hope." Claire sat on the porch and wept. Not from sadness, but from awe. One wrong delivery had started a chain reaction across the world. Hope had become more than a horse, she was a symbol, proof that even the broken, even the rejected, could rewrite their destiny. As evening fell, the last rays of sunlight painted the ranch in gold. Hope approached, resting her head on Claire's shoulder like she always did when the day was over. Claire stroked her neck gently and whispered, "Do you realize what you've done? You were never just a mistake. You were the miracle." Hope exhaled softly, her breath warm against Claire's skin. The sound was calm, steady, the sound of peace. In the distance, a car slowed near the gate. A small group of visitors stepped out, children holding handmade signs with words written in bright paint. "Thank you, Hope, and never give up." Claire laughed through her tears. She opened the gate and let them in. Hope walked forward gracefully, lowering her head so the children could touch her. Cameras clicked, but no one spoke. The moment didn't need words. For a long while, everyone simply stood there, silent, smiling, hearts full, watching the horse who should have never lived run free beneath a sky that seemed to open just for her. And as Hope galloped into the fading light, her shadow stretching far across the fields, Claire whispered the words that would stay with everyone who had heard their story. Sometimes, the wrong address is exactly where you're meant to be.